Hello and welcome to Introduction to Statistics, Math 141, Section 92. My name is Matt Lathrop. I'll be your instructor this semester, but please feel free to just call me Matt. I'm a full-time math instructor here at Heartland, and I want to use the videos on this page to walk you through just some of the basic information about this course before we actually start working at any of the individual content areas for the course. So the first thing I want to point out to you is whenever you log into our course shell, the first thing that you'll see is this announcements page. I would encourage you to just take a second to look at this, see if any new announcements have been posted each time you log in. For instance, right now there's an kind of introduction orientation announcement just to welcome you to the course. So you'll see a brief snippet of that, and if you click on the more link, then you'll get that expanded announcement. So again, anytime you log into the course, you'll see this screen pop up first, just a good idea to check and see if any new information has been posted, if there's any information I'm trying to pass on to you. Over on the left-hand side, what we'll be doing in these videos is taking a look at the information on some of these other pages. So you found this video on the Start Here page. What we want to do now is take a look at the syllabus. So this is our syllabus for this course. If you want to retain a printed copy of this, you can use the print this page button or the print feature in your browser to print off a copy of this. But this has my contact information, my office phone number, email, office number, and office hours. You're certainly welcome to use any of those means to get in touch with me. However, I would encourage you to use email or stop in my office during office hours. But the phone works as well, but email is usually the most reliable way to get a hold of me. This course is Introduction to Statistics, focuses on mathematical reasoning, the solving of real-life problems. That's going to explain some of the different specific topics we're going to be looking at this semester. But I'm going to skip ahead and talk about this last sentence. So throughout this course, an emphasis is going to be placed on calculating statistical results using appropriate technology. So we're not going to be actually calculating anything by hand in this course. We're going to be using a program called StatCrunch, which we'll talk talk about that a little bit more throughout these videos. So we'll be using technology to calculate any results, and then our focus is really going to be on interpreting those results in the context of the data. So basically, once we get a result, we're going to have a heavy emphasis in this course on explaining what that result means or what sort of questions that can answer for us in the real world. What's required for this course is online access to MyLabs Plus, which you have since you are already accessing this course. Online access to StatCrunch, which is included as part of your MyLabs Plus registration, so there's nothing additional you have to purchase there. Optional materials, you can get a hold of a physical textbook for this course if you would prefer to have an actual hard copy textbook to read, but that's just an option. MLP has an electronic text built into it, so as you're in this course, you can access the homework, textbook, any other resources that you need. I'll let you click on this page on your own, read through the relationship to academic development programs, transferability, the learning outcomes, which are going to map out some of the specific topics we'll cover. We will talk briefly about this outline. So what we're going to cover in this course is starting off after some orientation information, talking about graphical descriptions of data. So given a bunch of data, how do we visualize that or help that make sense so people can understand what that data is telling us? We'll talk about central tendency and variability, which just means what's the average of our data, how much variation is there. We'll move on to probability and sampling distributions. And then the last few topics we'll get into, we'll be getting into what's called inferential statistics. Not a big deal, you don't need to know what that means for right now, but essentially using sample data, we're going to try to make some predictions about things that we don't know. So confidence intervals, hypothesis testing, correlation and regression, and ANOVA testing are going to be some additional topics we'll get into that really are kind of more of what statistics is really about. So taking data that we do know and trying to draw some conclusions about things that we don't know. I do have some expectations for you in this course. First is that collaboration is highly encouraged. That can be difficult considering that we're in an online class, but I would encourage you to find ways to interact with each other through discussion boards, set up study groups, times to work on homework assignments together. Um, People just tend to do better, particularly in math classes, when you have someone to work with, someone to bounce ideas off of. As I mentioned already, we're going to be relying pretty heavily on technology in this course. Part of that just for the assignments that we'll be completing in MyLabs Plus, but also a strong technology component will be using that StatCrunch software to complete calculations. So we'll spend time getting you oriented to how to use the software for MLP and that StatCrunch software. But what you should be aware of is that lack of access to or malfunctioning technology will most likely not be considered acceptable excuses for late submissions. So you're taking an online class. The assumption is that you have regular access to an internet connection, that you have an up-to-date computer. If for some reason you're unable to access something at home, Heartland's computer lab, which is located in the library, is available to you. And just something to think about now is that you should have some backup plan in mind in case you just temporarily lose internet access at home. So a storm over the weekend or just downtime from your cable company, whatever happens, you want to have some backup plans so you can still get things in by the due dates. This class doesn't meet face-to-face, but your attendance and participation are still going to be important parts of this course. There are going to be weekly discussions. So for each module we go through, there will be a required discussion. We'll talk about those a little bit more. But you should read through this information on some points that are going to be available to you based off those participation activities. There is also a midterm withdrawal policy. At midterm, if you have failed to meet any of these requirements, you will be withdrawn. As long as you're participating in the course, it's nothing to worry about. But if you fail to access the course for 2 weeks in a row, if you fail to participate in more than 2 module discussions, or if you have too many incomplete assignments, you would be withdrawn. Again, as long as you're participating, nothing to worry about. So in addition to the discussion questions, you're also going to have homework and quizzes that will be assigned. I'm going to talk about each of these items briefly, but you should definitely come back and read through these thoroughly so you know what's going to be required. Every module will run from Monday to Monday, with homework assignments being due at 11:59 p.m. on whatever that due date is. If you do submit a homework assignment late, or if you miss the deadline, you can still submit it late for a 10% penalty. Since you have the opportunity to complete homework questions over and over again until you get them right, basically there's no reason you shouldn't have at least a 90% on every single assignment. You have the opportunity to have 100%, but even if you miss something, you can still get a 90%. Quizzes will be a little bit different. Quizzes you'll take at home, or you can come to campus and take those in the computer lab here, but there's no need to go to the testing center. Quizzes, you'll have just one opportunity to take that, but there will be a practice test available to you. You certainly can contact me if a quiz question you think was graded incorrectly. I'm happy to take a look at that, see if any credit's available to come back to you. So always make sure you review quizzes, how those were graded. And if you have questions, let me know. But what I would say is while you're taking quizzes, even though you're taking those at home, to think about trying to simulate an exam environment. So not relying on your book, relying on any notes, trying to take that just based off what you know so that you have a better measure of what you do understand and what you still need to review. There will be 4 regular exams in this course. Each exam will be split into 2 parts. The first part will be a proctored portion. The second part will be a take-home portion. So the proctored portion, you'll need to come to the testing center at the normal campus, or if you prefer, I can arrange things so you can go to the Lincoln or Pontiac campus for that. So that'll be a traditional proctored exam. Then the other portion will be a take-home written essay-based exam. So I read through the information on this. We'll talk about exams a little bit more as that date gets closer, but there will be a written component to each of our exams. Except for the final exam. The final exam will only have a proctored portion. Each of the exams, including the final, will have a practice test, just like with the quizzes, so you'll have the opportunity to see the types of questions you'll be encountering on the tests. But those proctored tests, the final exam, will need to be taken in the testing center by the posted deadline. Exam release dates are provided for you here. So each of those exams are released on a Monday, and then will be due the following Monday. So just like our modules will go from Monday to Monday, exams will run from a Monday to Monday. So you'll have any time within that window to complete those two parts of the tests. The grading structure for the course is outlined for you here, with your discussion and participation points making up 10% of your grade. Same with homework and quizzes, and then your exam and the final making up 70% of your grade. Required reading and writing is something you should take a look at. Some important dates that are listed, including the final day to drop with refund. Hopefully nobody ends up needing to drop the course within the first 2 weeks, but something you should be aware of. And the final day to withdraw being November 5th. Again, hopefully everybody has a successful experience in this course. We don't end up losing anybody, but those are dates to be aware of. And then we also have some days that were closed for Labor Day, Thanksgiving break. Being an online class, those don't affect us as much, but dates to realize that the college itself is going to be closed. The FERPA statement is just basically saying that due to federal privacy laws, I can only talk to you about your progress in this course. I can't talk to anyone else. The biggest thing that means for our communication is if you need to get in touch with me, you need to make sure you're emailing me using your Heartland email account, or that you're contacting me through the MyLabs Plus website. That way I can verify that I'm talking with you and not someone else. And keep in mind that any information in the syllabus is subject to change. Those changes will be announced through MLP, through email, to make sure you're aware of those. One of the last pieces to take a look at here is just our weekly schedule for the fall. So typically what we have is one module per week. So week 1 is module 1, week 2 is module 2, and then each exam will have a week dedicated to it. So our first few weeks will consist of a module, and then our first exam. So that first exam hits pretty early, but there's a relatively small amount of information that it's covering. We'll have another 2 weeks of new content, and then our second exam. For the third exam, we'll actually have 3 weeks worth of content. I'm sorry, still 2 weeks worth of content for the third exam, and then for the fourth exam, 3 weeks worth of content. So we're typically hitting a pattern of 2 modules, then an exam, 2 modules, then an exam, but that changes a little bit. For exam 4, we'll cover a little bit more material in between. After the fourth exam, we'll still have a couple of weeks of new material, and then we'll hit finals week. So take a look at that course calendar to be aware of upcoming dates and deadlines. This has the due dates for each of the exams, so you can look ahead if you know that you have travel plans or things that might cause problems in the future with due dates. You can look ahead and try to contact me in advance about those. I'd also encourage you to look at the general information for students. Just has information about testing services, counseling services, the library, disability support services. If you do have a documented disability, you're eligible for additional testing time, any of those sorts of scenarios, please feel free to just contact me. We'll make sure we're getting those accommodations met. But again, just read through the rest of this information in the syllabus. We've hit some of the highlights. You'll want to take a look at it a little bit more closely to make sure you're aware of all the policies and expectations of the course.